Mr. Squidward. Welcome to the night shift.
Good evening once again, everybody, and welcome in on another spectacular Saturday night into the MI6 Sports Network's late night recap and sports talk show. That, folks, is The Night Shift. It is episode number 7 on this Saturday, October 10th, 2020, wrapping up a very rare MI6 Sports Network doubleheader of programming. We, in fact, had a very special Saturday edition of No BS, our second season in episode 11. And of course, folks, back with you folks on the night shift for the next roughly hour or so. As usual, folks, alongside Isaiah Leung from the garage studio up there in Fremont, California. Yours truly, Cal McClurg from the home studio here in San Diego. Isaiah, good to see you again, man. And how's everything going tonight?
Great to see you, Callan. We had an explosive first show. It was filled with a lot of outlandish hot takes. It was filled with a long rant about Nick Mullins. It was filled with, you falling off your chair after hearing that I was stunning the world and picking the Chargers to beat the New Orleans Saints. It just had a lot of stuff in it. I mean, make sure you guys all go and check it out. You would really, really enjoy it. But hey, man, I'm hanging in there, man. Double duty tonight on at the MI6 Sports Network. I bought a Coke to the set to keep me awake, just like my guy Angel has had in our 3 hours of programming thus far. He's drank, 4 Cokes. So, Angel, a toast to you, man. Thanks for staying up with us. But, man, I can't wait for this show. It's been a great day of college football, and I can't wait to talk about it right now.
With that, folks, as a reminder, let me again give you the scoop here about the night shift. Again, this late night program comes your way every Tuesday, every Saturday, and Sunday night. Again, we try our best to come here. And again, if you've been perhaps at work during the course of a day, if you work the overnight hours, the after hours, as we call them, or the graveyard shift, or if you have probably just been away from your phone and haven't been able to watch anything on television or get any updates or stuff like that, we try our best to come here and again, give you folks about an hour or so of a Cliff Notes version of your Tuesday, Saturday, and Sunday for your sports day every Tuesday, Saturday, and Sunday at 10 o'clock Pacific time right here on the MI6 Sports Network. And that reminds me, folks, before we in fact dive into our topics tonight, as a reminder, coming up, folks, on Halloween night, so on October 31st, the MI6 Sports Network is throwing a big-time Halloween spooktacular bash here on October 31st. Time yet to be determined, though, but apparently what we have gathered from all of our fellow correspondents, it's going to be a massive show, mainly, though, just to, of course, celebrate the holiday, come dressed up in costumes, and also as well, we are hopefully going to be celebrating our 1,000th listen on the Anchor podcast app, where, again, folks, as we always have on the bottom of our screen, but again, you can find us via your podcast app, search the MI6 Sports Network and subscribe, leave us, hopefully it's a 5-star review, and hopefully leave us some kind words in your review as well. But again, folks, a Halloween special coming your way in roughly 2 or 3 weeks' time here with, I believe, all of us here from the 6, all wearing our costumes and enjoying a special Halloween evening here on the program. Let's jump in real quick into the comment box real quick. Of course, Angel, once again, back up with us. He is ready for round 2. Casey is also ready for round 2. Chardal is ready for round 2. And also, Christy Wilson is also ready for round 2. And also, Angel says, I will drink to that as well. And also, Mr. Chris Davis, our odds man and odds board watcher from MGM in Vegas, is in the house. So he'll keep us posted about lines that, in fact, change and go on throughout the course of the night. And again, kind of in a way, being our Vegas insider is Mr. Davis. With that, Isaiah, it's pretty much all, man, college football on the night shift tonight, man. The first game I'm going to talk about is a thrilling game from earlier Saturday morning, Texas, Oklahoma, the Red River showdown rivalry game from the Cotton Bowl, man, an instant classic with this game going deep into overtime, missed field goals, Sam Ehlinger putting on a great game for Texas, but in the end, though, it is Oklahoma taking down Texas in a thrilling, quadruple overtime game that had Gus Johnson, one of my favorite Fox television announcers, losing his mind with how epic this game was. Again, touchdowns, missed field goals, the crowd getting, behind their schools. And obviously it ends, though, with the interception by Sam Ehlinger to close out this ball game. Isaiah, I don't know if there's enough words, nouns, verbs, adjectives, synonyms, or antonyms to use about how this game went for both sides. And again, Oklahoma wins this game over Texas. Isaiah, give us your thoughts and a rundown of what was probably the best game on the schedule in a lot of people's minds earlier today.
Well, I'll tell you guys how it went. You guys see that right now I'm in a car right now. It was like going 150 miles an hour on the freeway with your friends. That's how this game felt like. It was a thriller of a game. It was so much fun to watch. It was back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Oklahoma actually was kind of dominating this game. They were up 31-17. Texas's offense couldn't do anything in the first 3 quarters of this game. They only had 17 points. We went to the fourth, and Oklahoma, they let Texas back in this game with just terrible defense. Sam Ehlinger, he willed Texas back into this game, tossed a couple of touchdowns to bring them back, and then the fun begins. The overtimes where I think it was Texas. They got the ball first. They score, and then Spencer Rattler in Oklahoma, they respond by scoring when they have the ball. And then in the second overtime, Rattler throws a touchdown pass. Oklahoma scores first, then Texas scores, and then in the third overtime, Texas gets their field goal blocked. So I'm thinking over here, Oklahoma's got this, man. The Sooners are going to win this game. And then the Sooners, they try to go for a field goal, and what happens? It's wide left. Oklahoma misses. So, and at that point, I'm racing around my house because I picked Oklahoma to win. I have money on Oklahoma to win. So I'm just like panicking and just, running around my house like, oh my gosh, man, Oklahoma's going to choke this game. Steven's choke theory is going to come into effect. But Oklahoma gets the ball first in the fourth overtime, I believe, and they score first, the touchdown. And then after that, it was Sam Ehlinger, an ill-advised deep ball into the end zone. He threw it too far. The receiver couldn't catch it, right into the Oklahoma defender hand, and Oklahoma wins this game. It was the game of the year. It was the best game. Yeah, it was the best game of the season thus far, and I think it was probably the most exciting game in the Red River rivalry I've seen in my entire life, because, through this entire decade thus far, a lot of the Red River rivalry games have been lopsided because either Texas has been really bad and Oklahoma's been really good. So this was just a really good game. But it just goes to show you, man, the Big 12 is just beating each other up. Oklahoma's got 2 losses now. Texas has 2 losses. The Big 12 is eliminated from playoff contention this season by virtue of themselves beating themselves up.
Isaiah, I don't know if this stat is right. Maybe Mr. Davis and MGM can help us out here, but I believe that the 98 points combined scored in this game today are the most points scored combined between the Longhorns and the Sooners in a Red River rivalry showdown, if I'm correct on that. If not, but I believe I saw a stat about that when the game concluded. But again, Isaiah, you're right, though. This game had it was a roller coaster of emotion. It had ups and downs. It had loops and corkscrews and, high points, low points. And then especially, man, as you go into overtime, and I know I've said a long time that, hockey playoff overtime is like the most stressful thing to watch on television. I would even throw that college football overtime can be somewhat stressful too, though, because of how the rules work out. At least you get the ball back, or at least you get one shot after a team scores or whatnot. But then you see it go 3 or 4 deep. But more than anything else, though, but I think what stands out, though, is the special teams play in this game. It's all about the block field goal by the Sooners on special teams. And then probably the most accurate kicker in college football for the Sooners is wide left. He wasn't even close. And again, we have Gus Johnson, probably the best college football announcer for Fox, just losing his mind, where he's like, he missed it. College football, Fox Sports. You know how he does that. He gets into the zone. And then, as mentioned, though, Spencer Rattler with the game-winning touchdown pass. Sam Ehlinger probably either overthrowing or underthrowing 2 targets that again was intercepted by the Oklahoma defense. So definitely instant classic in this ball game. Also, Christy agrees, though, fellas. College football today was crazy. James has a challenge. Try to say Red River rivalry 5 times. Goodness gracious, I'm not even going to attempt that. As often as I lose my place and stutter over my words, no, thank you. Casey agrees, though, that Texas-Oklahoma game was insane, and boy, I thought OU would blow them out, but Texas gave them a fight in this Red River game. Big 12 is definitely looking to be an overhyped conference, but one day in the future, this game is definitely in my bucket list to go to. Nice to see fans in the stands, and boy, I miss being at games. I agree. Isaiah, or first of all, actually, Chris says correct. Most points in a Red River shootout. Rivalry shootout, but again, 98 points. But yes, I agree, James. Try to say Red River rivalry 5 times fast. But yes, per MGM and per Chris, in fact, the 98 points combined is the most amongst the Horns and Sooners. Isaiah, what do you got for us, big fella?
You know, with Texas losing this game, now it just makes you wonder, how long of a leash does Tom Herman, the Texas head coach, have to turn this program around? Because when he was brought in, he was hyped up as this guy that was going to save Texas. And his first season was okay. It wasn't bad. Second season, they went to the Sugar Bowl. They won the Sugar Bowl. Sam Ehlinger in that game boldly declared, "We're back" for Texas. And then in the third season, this was supposed to be the season that they were supposed to take that next step and vault into national championship contention. But instead, what do? They go 6-6 and have the worst defense in all of college football. And now this year, they start 2-2 in what was supposed to be the most important season in Tom Herman's tenure. He's now 2-2. 2 back-to-back disappointing losses to TCU and Oklahoma. It just goes to show you, man, Tom Herman, his tenure his seat in Texas is boiling hot, I believe.
It's getting warmer by the loss, I would think, and also fellow MI6 co-host John Alcorn would agree, though. I think he said he was going to go and drive to the Texas Athletic Department to go and plead his case to get Herman fired. But again, folks, epic game today to start off the college football coverage today. Again, OU over Texas in a thrilling shootout down there at the Cotton Bowl in Dallas. Next game, Isaiah, Tennessee and Georgia hooking up in a SEC matchup from Athens today. It looked very bleak for Georgia in this ball game. First play of the game, ill-advised snap goes by the quarterback, recovered by the Vols in the end zone for a touchdown 2 times. The Dogs had a 4th and short and could not get the first down or get the touchdown. We're down by, I believe, 3 at halftime, but though came out firing on all cylinders in the second half, and their defense stifling the Vols. They win the game. Isaiah, if you're watching this game as a Georgia fan, you're looking at this game like, what in the world is going on? The first snap of the game is a botch snapped over the head of the quarterback into the end zone, recovered by the Vols for a touchdown. 2 times in this game, Georgia had the ball 4th and maybe a $5 foot long from being a first down or even getting into the end zone right at halftime. And both times Tennessee's defense snuffed it out, though. But as you had said, though, in our host group chat, though, Georgia's D came alive in a big way in the second half to take down Tennessee. Isaiah, overall thoughts and really what changed in your mind from half 1 for the Dogs to half 2 for Georgia with this win over Tennessee?
Well, my thoughts on this game is, Georgia has an upcoming game next week against Alabama. That's going to be, I think, the biggest game in Georgia or in the last 5 years for Georgia, because Alabama has been that team that they've wanted to catch. They came oh so close to catching Alabama 3 years ago in the national championship game. They ended up faltering, and then in the SEC championship game they had Alabama on the ropes, and then they couldn't close the deal. But I believe, honestly, the defense that you saw in the second half that completely suffocated Tennessee was the real Georgia defense. That defense in the first half, they gave up 14 points. The other touchdown that Georgia gave up was actually a bad snap, so it wasn't the defense that gave it up. They only gave up 14 points in the first half. But I thought it was just that the Georgia defense woke up. They finally woke up in the second half and was like, yo, we're down 20 we're down 21-17. We cannot lose this game. We cannot lose to a Tennessee team who, like, they've been kind of a middling program the last few years. I think Georgia just said we cannot lose this game. We're better than them in all areas. We got to show it, and that's what they did in the second half. The defense came alive. They, as I said earlier, they were suffocating Tennessee. I think Tennessee in the second half, their possessions went like it was strip sack, fumble, punt, interception, and then strip sack, fumble, and then turnover on down. So it was a masterpiece performance by that Georgia defense. Georgia is definitely going to need that same performance they had in the second half against Tennessee in that game next week against Alabama. And I gotta say, man, the offense looked pretty good. Stetson Bennett looked really poised. He looked really confident. He made the right throws. Some of the play calls I was kind of like befuddled about, like 3rd and 10, and you're running it right up the middle. I really don't understand that. Or third and maybe 5, and you run a delayed handoff. So I don't understand some of the play calls, but I thought overall the offense played pretty good. Running game got going in the second half. The quarterback looked really poised. The wide receiver, they did pretty good, especially number 10 and Pickens, the wide receiver. I'm pretty sure we're going to get into Pickens later on for something that he did in the game not related to football. But overall, I think it was a great game for Georgia. I'm glad that nobody got hurt because they're going to need all hands on deck next week against Alabama. They're going to need everybody to perform at their best to have a chance to win that game.
You know, Isaiah, you were hinting about that again, a big-time rivalry game between the Vols and Bulldogs again. We saw a defender for the Vols toss for targeting, and then, of course, the Pickens play with squirting the water on the receiver when the play was over. Kind of petty, I think, but Isaiah, it's a rivalry game. You probably would expect that amongst these schools. Any thought? I will say though as well, there was one big missed call in this game that I saw on the CBS replay of a Tennessee defender throwing a right-hand jab at somebody. The referees did not pick it up and throw flags, but Isaiah, you probably nothing new here with a SEC rivalry game, right?
Well, yeah, you're right. Nothing new, but I thought the Pickens play, even though it was really funny, I thought it was terrible. I thought that the CBS broadcasters, Brad Nessler and Gary Danielson, they even lamented him for that play. Like, come on, man. Even Kirby Smart after the game said, dude, you're a 21-year-old and you're doing this kind of dumb stuff. Like, you're doing some stuff that 7 and 8-year-olds are doing. Like, grow up. Like, I really don't understand why Pickens needed to do that. Like, spraying water on someone. Are you kidding me? Like, you're not in elementary school, man. You're in college. You got to be better, man. Little kids are watching that play and are watching this game, and they're going to think that that's okay, and they're going to do it in the future. So you're a model for these little kids that look up to you. I expect Pickens to, be better and be more mature than that.
I thought it was great. I really thought it was great. Probably the best way to get a unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, squirting water on a opposing player. Couple of thoughts, Isaiah. Christy agrees that Tennessee-Georgia game was nuts. Definitely agree with that. And also Casey agrees with you, though, Isaiah, but that Georgia-Bama game is going to be a good one. Brad writes in, go Dogs. That's all. Smiling face emoji. And also Mr. Davis says, for the record, fellas, Texas was ranked 96th in total D last season. Only the UMass Minutemen was the worst at 130, ranked by yards allowed per game. My goodness gracious. That is definitely not a good stat line for the Longhorns. And also James says, wow, what a waste of water. Ha, ha, ha. Spraying water on that defender or that player. But again, the Bulldogs take down the Vols earlier today from Athens, Georgia. With that, Isaiah, next game on the list here today, another great game earlier on Saturday morning. Florida visiting Texas A&M from College Station. Another back-and-forth battle, Isaiah, and probably a landmark win. I think a lot of people have been saying for the A&M program in regards to the game-winning field goal. They hold off the Gators from College Station, a very packed house there at College Station. The 12th man, of course, becoming a back in full throat once more. Isaiah, another wacky, loony game on this schedule. As we've said, man, a lot of these games were very wild and very just epically awesome to watch. But Isaiah, how about your thoughts about A&M getting probably a very big hallmark win over Florida earlier today?
Well, I've been saying this for a couple months now, and that was I thought that Florida was one of the most overrated teams in college football. Yes, they have a high-powered offense led by Kyle Trask, but their defense in their first 3 games have given up an average of 35 points a game. This is the SEC. Like, I don't care how high-powered your offense is. If you're going to give up like 35 plus points a game, you're not going to win. You're not going to beat teams like Texas A&M or the Georgias of the world, the team that Florida is chasing. So Florida has got to get better defensively if they want to compete with Georgia in the SEC East. I think that their defense is going to end up being their Achilles heel, but great win for Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M. I mean, this guy got a 10-year, $75 million contract to come to Aggie land to coach the Texas A&M Aggies. And, you know, he's kind of not lived up to the hype thus far. He has recruited some really great classes, but those classes hasn't bared fruit yet. But what a great win for Jimbo Fisher. I think he needed it because after like last week's really bad loss to Alabama, in which I think they lost 52-24 and just got like completely swamped by Alabama. You needed a win like this to erase that bad taste of your mouth and, you know, get that mini pressure that was kind of on Jimbo Fisher off the table.
Definitely, and I think any time as well, Isaiah, if you win a big game over a school like Florida and you've kind of in a way maybe been pushed around a little bit. I mean, post the Johnny Manziel era in A&M, and of course moving to the SEC a couple years ago. I think it's always huge, and more than anything else, though, simply great though to kind of get that win, and also over a very great quarterback too, and Trask for Florida, as we already had stated. Though some comments rolling in here real quick. Chris wanted to add on, Isaiah, for the record, in regards to that, going back to the stat here about offense or in regards to yards allowed. Chris says if you were to rank them by points, Texas at 65 would be 65th with 27.5 points per game. And then UMass, 130, 52 points per game. I'm going to assume that's going to be given up in regards to points allowed. Casey agrees. Down goes Florida. Nice win by A&M today. I agree with Isaiah. The Florida Gators are definitely an overrated team, and their defense is awful. Isaiah, do you agree in regards to that, in regards to mainly the defense for Florida being their downfall more so than their offense? Isaiah?
Yeah.
There we go.
Wait, what was the question again? Hello?
Casey's comment was down goes Florida. Nice win by A&M
Callan,
today.
what was the question?
Yeah, the question was, do you agree, though, about Florida's defense not being that good and being awful?
Yeah, I completely agree with it because, the stats show it. Florida's defense is garbage. They're giving up an average of 35 plus points a game. They've gotten torched by Ole Miss. Even though Ole Miss has a high-powered offense, they got torched by them. I think they got torched by South Carolina as well. And Texas A&M, let's face it, they weren't scoring that much points to begin the season, and you give up 45 points to Texas A&M. That's inexcusable whatsoever. The linebackers looked lost. The corners looked lost. The defensive line wasn't getting any pressure. If you can't get any pressure against Georgia and your defensive linemen can't stop the run, which they couldn't stop today against Texas A&M, you're in big trouble because Georgia, forget throwing the ball. They're just going to run all over you. And with their defense that they're playing right now in Athens, you won't be able to score any points against the Georgia Bulldogs. So Florida's got to fix their defense They got to fix their defense fast if they want to compete with the likes of Georgia and Alabama.
And now, Isaiah, a two-part question posed by Brad. He says, question, fellas, are all SEC and ACC teams, like Florida, for example, simply overranked currently because of the absence of other conferences? For example, Ohio State. Isaiah, do you agree with that first part of the question? Again, are all SEC and ACC teams, for example, Florida, simply overranked right now currently because of the absence of other conferences, for example, the Big Ten and Ohio State?
Yeah, I agree with it. I think the only the only two teams right now in the SEC that are correctly ranked where they are is Georgia at number 3 and Alabama at number 2. I think Georgia at number 3 is correct. I think Georgia is one of the top 3 teams in all of college football. Alabama, Nick Saban, we know how high powered they are, how great of a defense they are, even though they gave up 48 points today to Ole Miss. But those two teams, I think they are correctly ranked where they are right now. But you had team like Florida, which was ranked 4th. Florida today was exposed for being the overrated team that they are. Their defense is horrible, like we've been saying. Offense, they're really good, but you can't win without a defense. Wasn't LSU ranked number 6 to start the year, Callan? Can you confirm that?
I believe they were. If Chris can confirm, that'd be huge.
Yeah, I think LSU was ranked number 6. We've seen how awful they are. Their defense is even worse than Florida's for some reason. They gave up a gazillion number of points to Mississippi State, who have then turned around and lost to Arkansas and Kentucky, and they've looked like a shell of themselves from that game. And then also, they couldn't even cover Missouri, who I believe was the second worst team in the SEC, so they were simply overrated. And then you have Auburn. Auburn, I don't know why they're always ranked in the top 10. They are always super overrated. They just can't win against the Alabamas, the Georgias, the Floridas of the world, and the LSUs of the world. And also, I think you had Tennessee ranked at number 14. That's way too high, man. I like Tennessee. I think they're on the upswing. But come on, man. Tennessee at 14 is way, way too high.
And then, Isaiah, the next part of Brad's question is, if so, is Georgia for real in your mind? Say yes, please. Say yes, parentheses.
Well, this season, because I thought the Pac-12 wasn't going to play. I thought the Mountain West wasn't going to play. So I picked up Georgia as my team because I needed an SEC team to root for. So I'm trying to keep my bias out of it, but I think Georgia's for real. I've seen them play. They look like a really dominant team. Offensively, I think they're kind of getting it together after that slow start against Arkansas. Remember, last week they drubbed Auburn, who was a number 7 team in the country, and then they follow that up this week with putting up 44 points against Tennessee. So I think the offense is getting it together. The running game needs a little bit of work, but I think they're going to work things out. The defense is for real, man. I think this is the best defense Kirby Smart has had since he's taken over the Georgia Bulldog program. So yeah, Georgia is for real. I picked them to go to the college football playoff before the season, and I'm going to stick with my prediction right now.
A couple more comments rolling in and trickling in. Angel says Georgia is for real in his mind. Chris has the standings for us, Isaiah. Tennessee was 15th in the AP poll starting off in week 2. Florida was number 5 in that same poll. And also Brad says, welcome to UGA, Isaiah. So
thank you.
There we go.
There we go.
Go Dogs. With that next game, Isaiah, on the schedule, Texas Tech, Iowa State, your boy, Brock, your boy, the quarterback for the Cyclones, leading them to another victory over the Red Raiders today. Iowa State looking very impressive so far. Again, I believe they came in 23rd or 24th in the nation so far on the in the rankings. But Isaiah, good start so far for Iowa State. I believe it's their first 3-0 start in the past several years. But a good start, though, and at least a very good beginning of the year for the Cyclones against the Red Raiders earlier today. Overall thoughts, Isaiah, so far on how, in fact, the Cyclones have looked through their first 3 games. Very impressive, I'd say, and probably a team right now under the radar right now in the Big Ten, right now in their conference.
Guys, if you guys haven't heard or seen Brock Purdy play, the quarterback of Iowa State, if you haven't seen him play yet, I really recommend you guys to go check it out. I really recommend you guys to go search up the next Iowa State game and watch that game, because Brock Purdy is for real, man. This guy, he was a freshman last year. He put up pretty good stats as a freshman. And, I saw him on the young quarterbacks leaderboard that was put up by, I guess it was Athlon Football Magazine. And it was him. It was Keaton Slovis from USC. It was Sam Howell from North Carolina, and I was like, Brock Purdy, I've never seen this guy play. How could he be so high up there? And I've watched the last 2 games of this guy play, and let me tell you guys, this guy's the real deal. He's got a very, very good arm. He is so poised. He's got great footwork. He's got great football IQ. I mean, this guy is doing things that you typically never see from a sophomore quarterback. Like today, there was one play where it was a simple play. He scrambled out of the pocket, and as he was about to get sacked, he saw, I think, a receiver out of his left corner of his eye, and he just delivered it. And somehow, some way, the guy made the pass to the receiver, and he got the first down. I'm like, how do you see that guy, man? Like you're getting chased by 2 defenders, and you somehow, some way make see that guy in the left corner of your eye, and you make a throw. It was kind of like Patrick Mahomes-esque. But this guy's really impressive, man. I think he's going to be a top 10 pick when he does, in fact, come out. He just got all the traits, man. And I hope he continues to ball out because he's a really good player. I hope he wins the Heisman, to be honest with you, and gets the respect that he deserves.
I mean, obviously, it's still year 2, and there's still a long way to go for him at this juncture, but definitely impressive start for the Cyclones and for Purdy as well. Chris says, please don't even talk to me about the Red Raiders. Hashtag wreck no one. Don't wreck anybody, but wreck no one. Casey writes in saying, fellas, so far this weekend has been the best weekend of college football so far. Can't wait for Big Ten, the Mountain West, and the Pac-12 to begin, especially for his USC Trojans. Isaiah, what do you got for us?
I disagree, Casey. The best week in college football is always when Alabama goes down. That's the best week in college football. So until then, I mean, the games might be great, but until Alabama goes down, there can't be a greatest week of college football, my friend.
True point. It's kind of like when you see the Yankees lose or, someone else that you don't like lose. So definitely I would agree, but it was a very chaotic and wild day in college football. Next game, Isaiah, another one of those great shootout games today, but North Carolina taking down Virginia Tech earlier today, too, from Chapel Hill. Another big-time game here, again, with the score being well out of control. I mean, if you are a college football fan and you love offense, this was your day to watch these games. But Isaiah, North Carolina, the Tar Heels off to a great start, beating up on Virginia Tech today. But again, though, man, a very close game, but also very high scoring. And also, believe Mac Brown doing some good stuff back there for the Heels. Overall thoughts on another one of those epically amazing high scoring affairs today?
Mac Brown is doing a phenomenal job at North Carolina since he returned back to coaching. I mean, who would have thought when North Carolina hired Mac Brown that they would be where they are at right now? I didn't, honestly. I thought that, North Carolina, when they did hire Mac Brown, I thought North Carolina made a mistake of a hire because I thought Mac Brown had been out of football for so long. No disrespect to him. He's a great coach, but I just thought he was too far removed from football, from coaching football, to get back in and have success, especially at a place in North Carolina, which was on the downfall after the last couple of years of, I believe, the Justin Fuentes era. But Mac Brown has got that program humming. Their offense is doing really good. They have one of the best young quarterbacks in all of college football. Like I mentioned when I talked about Brock Purdy, there's 3 young quarterbacks right now in college football that are sophomores that you guys should watch out for. Keaton Slovis from USC, Sam Howell from North Carolina, and Brock Purdy from Iowa State. These 3 guys have a very, very bright future ahead of them. They're putting up really good numbers. And, man, that draft class in 2022, if these guys continue to play the way that I think they can play, oh, my God, man, this might be the most loaded quarterback draft class we have ever seen in our lives. But back to North Carolina, this team, I think, can pose a real challenge to Clemson in the ACC. They have a high-powered offense. They got a really good coach in Mac Brown. The defense, they might need to, fix it up because you can't be giving up over 47 points, especially to a team like Clemson, and expect to win that game. So if they can fix that defense, they will pose a major threat to Clemson for supremacy in the ACC.
You know, Isaiah, I say this a lot in that I'm a firm believer that when a player or coach goes somewhere else, a change of scenery usually helps. And of course, Mac Brown, you know, I'm going to call him a legendary coach at Texas, you know, at the height of that, you know, great, you know, time there with the Longhorns, you know, the Vince Young touchdown against USC in the BCS title game at the Rose Bowl, part of that, but also, and then, you know, he goes away from the game for a while. He goes into broadcasting. Then he comes back into the fold, and it's kind of like, okay, how effective will Mac Brown be after being out of the game for so long? And so far, so good with North Carolina. I think, though, when you see a guy come back, like even like a Mac Brown back into the fold of things, you know that hopefully he's going to be doing something special. But again, the Heels winning over Va Tech earlier on Saturday. Next game, Isaiah, another shootout game that we were kind of watching very closely during No BS earlier on Saturday night. Ole Miss and Alabama, and I think Ole Miss is probably once a mulligan on this game in regards to the high-scoring affair that was in this game as well, man. But Bama's able to pull this game out against a very good Lane Kiffin-led Ole Miss Rebels ball club. Iowa, I mean, Isaiah, thinking about Iowa, but Isaiah, insane game here. And again, you know, props to Lane Kiffin for keeping that game with Bama that close. And again, they probably had a couple chances. Couldn't finish off a job, though. But, man, pretty impressive, I think, if you're an Ole Miss fan, that he hung in there with a Nick Saban-led Alabama ball club practically to the very end of this ball game, dude.
To be honest, Callan, I thought that this game would go the way it did because Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin, they have a high-powered offense. Lane Kiffin has come in without a training camp and has put together a high-powered offense the first 4 weeks of the season for Ole Miss. I think they've been scoring like an average of 30-plus points per game. So it's really, really impressive. I thought that Ole Miss could score on Alabama because Lane Kiffin, he was the offensive coordinator of Alabama for a couple of seasons before he departed for FAU to be their head coach. So he knows all the ins and outs of Nick Saban's defense. He knows how to attack them. So I knew that coming in that Kiffin would have a lot of tricks up his sleeve. I thought that they would be able to score on Alabama. But the biggest problem for Ole Miss is they can't stop anyone. They're like Florida. That's why their opening game against Florida, that's where they lost, because they just couldn't stop Florida. And, you know, if you can't stop someone, you're going to have to go basically toe-to-toe with them and match what they do. You have to, if Alabama scores a touchdown, if Alabama scores a touchdown, you have to score a touchdown. If Alabama scores another touchdown, you have to score another touchdown. You just have to keep it up scoring-wise with them on every possession, and that is very, very tiresome. And you know, that is non-sustainable. So I think that in the end, it came down to the Ole Miss defense not being able to get stops. I don't think they even got a single stop in that game. Ole Miss, if they had a pretty good defense, I would say maybe they could, you know, do something special in the SEC. But that defense, man, they honestly would allow 25 points to Weber State if they played.
Isaiah, I think that, you know, something that I kind of touch base on about when you play a team like, for example, the Alabamas of the world, the LA Dodgers of the world, you can't give those teams free chances to score points or get themselves going, you know, and as you said, though, you know, if they score, you have to score. If they score again, you have to score again. And you, again, just can't make mistakes and afford to turn the ball over or walk batters or stuff like that. You have to take, and if they give you a very small chance or small inch, you have to take that inch and run with it. And hopefully that it turns into something bigger for you. A couple of comments that rolled in. First from Brad to Isaiah. Isaiah in that car, worried about carbon monoxide poisoning. I mean, did he just say that UNC could challenge Clemson, the ACC? Isaiah, please get out of the car and quick. I would agree, honestly. But then again, folks, it's why he's called the Asian Skip Bayless. He just makes outlandish hot takes on the programs here. Christy also agrees that the Bama Ole Miss game was insane because she was kind of keeping us posted on the first part of our doubleheader tonight. With that, Chris and MGM have the following odds for the college football championship. Clemson a plus 210, the Buckeyes plus 260, Bama plus 300, Georgia 12-1, Penn State 25-1, Michigan 40-1, The Canes 70-1. And for some reason, somehow, some way, Vanderbilt is at 1,000-1. My goodness gracious. With that, Isaiah, we'll let you respond.
Yeah, I think that Georgia's playoff hopes hinges on next weekend's monster game against Alabama. If you win that game, I think you're gonna vault to the top of the you're gonna vault to the top in terms of best odds for the college to win the college football national championship. But if you lose that game, then I don't know if you're even going to win the SEC East, because you would be tied with Florida, and that game against Florida would be the main decider for who wins the SEC East and probably a chance to face Alabama in the SEC championship game. So next week is the biggest game in the last 5 years in Georgia history. They have to win that game.
Isaiah, Chris has a great stat for us. Can you first, Isaiah, take a guess at how many times you think Bama punted in this ball game?
Ooh, I would say zero.
So close. One time they punted in this ball game. One time the Tide punted in this game. Brad has one more question for us about the Ole Miss Bama game. Isaiah, he writes in, guys, Ole Miss, the failed onside kick decision with a tie game at the start of the fourth. Did it turn the game? Never recovered. Do you agree, Isaiah, about the about that decision to go for the onside kick to start the fourth quarter?
I think that was the one where I was telling Callan, Furman, and the rest of the guys on No BS, where Ole Miss, I think they had that onside kick recovered by the kicker, but the kicker fumbled it, I guess, and Alabama recovered. But listen, it did turn the game, because you can't give extra possessions to a high-powered team like Alabama. You just can't. You have to take each possession that you get, because, as I was saying earlier, this game came down to Ole Miss not being able to get stops against Alabama. Alabama would score, and then Ole Miss would score, and it just came down to that. They couldn't get any stops, and Alabama got 2-3 stops, and that was the major difference in this game.
I would agree. And like I said, Brad, again, you can't afford to give teams like Alabama or great teams like that will turn your mistakes into points. And that, I think, is definitely how, in fact, the game for one turned in favor of the Tide, and also that the Rebels never fully recovered. But again, thanks for the input and the question. And also, by the way, Isaiah, Chris also says, guess how many times Ole Miss punted in this game?
I know the score was 63-48, so I'm guessing probably 2-3 times.
2 times they punted. So 3 punts. So if you are a fan of offense, that was definitely, like I said, if you were a fan of offense, today was your day to watch some great college football action. Last game, Isaiah, for our college football block here before we, in fact, move on to one final topic before we, in fact, get out of here for the night. LSU and Missouri. Again, the game moved, though, out of Baton Rouge due to, again, the oncoming Hurricane Delta. But man, oh man, Isaiah, the Tigers are able to stifle the Tigers. So a team called the Tigers won this ball game, but it's Missouri beating the defending champion LSU Tigers today, thanks to a goal line stand and a batted down 4th down pass. The Tigers of LSU lose the game. And I believe, if Mr. Davis can correct me, but I believe it's the first time since 1998 or 1996 that the defending national champs have won one of their first 3 games of the season. And obviously, Isaiah, not the best way for LSU to try to rebound after to defend their championship. I've already seen some tweets about, is Ed Orgeron going to be fired? I'm like, oh, give me a break. Championship hangover and a whole brand new offense practically is, in fact, with the Tigers. But I believe that the stat I saw was either since 1996 or 98 is the first time that I think that the defending champs have lost 2 of their first 3 games. But Isaiah, I don't know, man, how much credit can be given, though, to the Missouri defense for that goal line stand to win the ball game. Overall thoughts on the Tigers of Missouri beating the Tigers of LSU today?
It just shows you what I've been saying on the program for a couple of months, and that is, I've been hearing a lot of chirping about how LSU is so great. Their offense won't miss a beat without Joe Burrow, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, the rest of their playmakers that left for the NFL draft. They won't miss a beat without Joe Brady, their whiz kid offensive coordinator who left for the Carolina Panthers. They won't miss a beat without Dave Aranda, their defensive coordinator who left for Baylor to become the head coach. All that is nonsense, man. All that is garbage. LSU has looked like a shell of itself from last year. They are missing badly Joe Burrow. They're missing Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They're missing all the guys on defense that left. They're missing Dave Aranda. I honestly don't know why. Ed Orgeron made really eye-opening comments. I think it was at the beginning of the season where he said that Bo Pelini was a better defensive coordinator than Dave Aranda. Just look at the results. Since Bo Pelini has came in to LSU to replace Dave Aranda, LSU's defense, I believe, is giving up over 450 to 500 yards a game to the opposing offense. The only time that they didn't give up that many yards offensively and lots of numbers of points was to Vanderbilt, who's the worst team right now in the SEC, and they're making everybody look like Alabama. So I just think LSU is extremely overrated. They're missing a lot of their players that departed. I think we all knew that this was going to happen. I think the only people that didn't know this was going to be happening was the ESPN commentators and the Fox Sports commentators of the world. Listen, Ed Orgeron, he's a great coach. He's a fantastic coach. He's a great recruiter. He's a great motivator. He's going to get this program back to, I don't know, back to championship, to national championship form, because I think that was once in a 10-year type of thing. But I think he's going to get this program back to the respectability that they were at kind of like last year. But it's going to have to take some time because you lost a lot of pieces and you lost a lot of players to the NFL and to other jobs.
Comments trickling in and funneling in. Isaiah, first from James Gonzalez. Fellas, what a roaring matchup. Ha, ha, ha. Tigers beat the Tigers today. Christy agrees with the laughing face emoji. James says, or maybe a growling matchup between the Tigers and Tigers. Mr. Davis writes in real quick, a stat to know, Isaiah. Bama and LSU, two programs that once played a game, to a 9-6 score allowed a combined 1,233 total yards today. And also the Tigers, LSU, came into the game having been ranked in the top 25 AP style for 34 straight weeks. That is a streak that will probably almost certainly will come to an end in his mind. Also, Christie agrees the NFL hit LSU hard. Casey King says LSU is having a championship hangover, but Ed Orgeron will rebuild that team. He is a good coach, and I am still pissed when USC did not give him the job permanently and went with that idiot drunk Steve Sarkisian instead. Isaiah wants to add on what he got for us.
Don't forget Clay Helton, man. Don't forget Clay Helton. But the thing I wanted to add on is I think it was the stat that Casey just added about Alabama and LSU giving up a ton of yardage and points. But this is why I think Georgia's going to beat Alabama next week, Saturday, because I think right now, Alabama, they have the best offense maybe in college football, and Georgia, they've got the best defense in college football. So someone's going to have to give. And, for me, I'm old school. I think that defense wins championships. So that's why I think, Alabama, I don't think Georgia's and Kirby Smart are going to allow Alabama to do what they did against Ole Miss, and that was just score basically on every possession.
Yeah, that was Chris with the stat there. But again, the Tide and Tigers, two programs that once played a game to a 9-6 score, allowed a combined 1,233 yards today. And also, Chris has no idea on the record in regards to the last time a defending champion lost two of their first three games. And also, I should mention, too, this is the first time that LSU has opened up a season 1-2 for the first time in 26 years that they have opened up a season at 1-2 on the season. That is a very tough way to go down if you are a fan of the Tigers. With that, Isaiah, a quick, not really an update, but some news to pass along before, in fact, we get to Game 6 of the NBA Finals. Again, of course, the Lakers faltering to the Heat in Game 5, 111-108, though. But per reports from ESPN.com, we can confirm that both Anthony Davis is going to be probable to play in this game again. He's been dealing with a very big or very dreadful right heel contusion that, again, saw him hit the floor pretty hard on the loss on Friday. And also, it still remains, though, but Goran Dragic remains doubtful for Game 6, still dealing with a left foot issue as well. And again, Isaiah, more so, I know, of course, that Game 5 happened, but Isaiah, more so, I still think, though, that the Lakers are fine, though. I think as well, I know a lot of people had some concerns about Anthony Davis and that foot injury, maybe a suspension due to a potential flagrant foul in Game 5. But also, again, no Dragic again, though, for Miami. So, Isaiah, which ball club probably is most perhaps worse for wear here with wear and tear and injuries right now being felt on both sides of the coin?
I gotta say it's the Miami Heat, because Anthony Davis is gonna play tomorrow. The Miami Heat most likely won't have Goran Dragic, who they desperately missed his scoring the entire NBA Finals. Goran Dragic, believe it or not, was the Miami Heat leader in terms of scoring when it came to their backcourt. They're missing him desperately. I think if they did have his scoring, I think you could maybe see some of the game, or not. I think you could honestly see this being, who knows, maybe 3-2 Miami right now, but not 3-2 Miami, but the games would be much closer than it is. But I just think that with Goran Dragic out, that's a huge blow for Miami, and they just don't have the scoring output to replace the scoring output that Goran Dragic brings to the table. I think that's why Miami is going to end up faltering and losing Game 6.
I would think so. And of course, Isaiah, I know people are probably, ready to make the jokes about the Lakers blowing a 3-1 lead. But again, as a reminder, LeBron has not blown a 3-1 lead in his career. And again, I think it was just more so, I think the Lakers, like I said, though, perhaps earlier on Saturday, Isaiah, or maybe even on Friday, is that, we've seen the Lakers kind of have like these throwaway games, but also the thing that I think at this point in time is going to dictate how Game 6 goes is if the Lakers are playing from behind. I would think a lot of people would agree with me. If the Lakers find themselves losing the first quarter by any stretch of the imagination, that they would, in fact, lose this game. If the Lakers are off to a sloppy start with turnovers, unnecessary flashy play, and missing shots, they're not going to win this game. And I really think that the first quarter, the first 12 minutes maybe in my mind, dictate who wins this game, whether it's the Lakers if they come out firing on all cylinders. But also, like I said, though, as well, Isaiah, that Miami had this very crazy shooting night in Game 5 where like anything that they threw up in the air was going in, whether it was from the mid-range, from inside from down low, mid-range, and also from beyond the arc, though. I feel like, though, Isaiah, we've seen this so many times, though, in basketball, man. And I always think back to like the 2000 Lakers playing the Blazers in Game 7, where the Blazers got up to that very big lead and they were hitting every single shot. And then as the fourth quarter kind of came around, though, I know, of course, this is two different Laker ball clubs we're comparing to, Isaiah, but that Portland went cold, that eventually went cold, and the Lakers eventually got hot. But I think that the first quarter, the first 12 minutes might be what plays the biggest in my mind for how Game 6 does, in fact, go. A couple of comments real quick, Isaiah, before we get back to you. David Stott staying up late back in Cleveland saying, boys, how we doing? Of course, David, thank you for being here. Again, going to be a very condensed show tonight. We've actually have done two programs tonight. This is our second program tonight, so we're going to be keeping things a little bit somewhat at a reasonable time tonight. One of our fellow viewers and fellow good men and good people of the network, but John Smith Jr. says, LSU is no Clemson, Ohio State, or Bama. They lucked into a national title with Burrow in a big-time year last season. Also, per Chris and his sources at the MGM in Vegas, the Lakers are a 5-point favorite, minus 220 on the money line, and the over-under is at 214.5 on the over-under. And also, Casey says the Lakers need to wrap this up tomorrow. If they don't, and if it goes to Game 7, I hate to say it, but I think the Lakers will be in a disappointment in Game 7. But in all honesty, I do think the Lakers wrap this up. It's one thing a lot of people would agree that they will in fact do that. With that, Isaiah, before we in fact get ready to close out, man, as we in fact do get to week 5 of the NFL season, again, coming up on Sunday, again, a lot of very perhaps dreadful matchups on Sunday, again, a lot of injuries, of course, COVID issues still plaguing ball clubs. Isaiah, give me maybe the one game on Sunday that you're going to be watching very closely.
Well, first of all, Callan, don't worry. I won't torture you by saying Chargers and Saints. But, oh, man, one matchup? Ooh. Even though the Giants are really bad right now, I'm excited to see the Giants-Cowboys game because I think that's going to be a high-scoring game because both defenses are really awful. The Giants' defense is awful. The Cowboys' defense is awful. Daniel Jones and that Giants offense, they've looked absolutely putrid the first 4 weeks of the season. If there's one way to turn it around, that's going to be going up against that terrible Cowboys defense. Sorry, Christy Wilson, but if the Giants, if they want to turn things around, it's going to be going up against the Cowboys and shredding them. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I'm looking forward to it because I think it's going to be back and forth. But ultimately, I think Dallas, with the experience that they have, the more talent that they have on their team, I think they're going to end up winning this game.
With that, a couple of odds, courtesy of Chris and MGM, as mentioned. The largest two lines tomorrow. The Ravens open up as a 12.5-point favorite in their ball game. And then the Chiefs against the Raiders are at a 11-point favorite. So those are the two largest lines if you are wagering on Sunday. Also, real quick, Isaiah, some more comments did in fact trickle in. Brad says, the best Heat player in the series so far, Danny Green. Sorry, could not resist. I know a lot of Laker fans have been crushing Danny Green like a Bud Light can the past several hours and days. James Gonzalez agrees, though. I feel bad for Dragic getting to the finals finally after years of being on mediocre ball clubs, and sadly, he's hurt. Also, Chris with a very staggering comment. Indy and Cleveland is a pick'em, so there is no favorite in this ball game. That might be, that right there for me is the game I'm watching because, Isaiah, like I have said, though, buddy, for one, it is a Phillip Rivers-led offense against a very surprisingly good for right now, good Cleveland Browns offense. No egos, no prima donna BS going on, no pouty faces. Everyone's on the right track and the right page right now. So I definitely would have agreed. And Angel definitely agrees with Chris, though, in the chat box. He says, "Who would have thought that Cleveland and Indy that Indy and Cleveland would have been a great matchup?" Stephen Wang writes in to say we were so close to Lakers in 5, 5, 5, and 5. Angel, though, with a great one, though, about the Lakers. They have to treat this game like a game 7 tomorrow. Definitely agree. Christy is watching the Giants and Cowboys. Must-win game for Dallas. James also says Indy versus Cleveland is only good-looking game to see. Tuesday night be good, too, with the Bills and Titans. Definitely agree. Also, Angel, the Giants are a 1-15 ball club. Also, Christy says, no argument for me, Isaiah. The Cowboys defense is bad. Casey also agrees. Of course, I'll be watching my Rams, but I'm also interested in that Colts-Browns game, which I believe will be a good one. And also, real quick, as well, David B. Stotts also says, yes, sir, about his Cleveland Browns. They are just balling. And also, real quick, my vote, Scott Hansen out at NFL Red Zone and Callan McClurg in. I don't know if I could really handle a rapid-fire highlight reel show. Maybe, who knows? Isaiah, over to you. What do you got, buddy?
Yeah, I got two things to add. Number one, if you guys like defense, if you're a fan of defense, I would strongly suggest you guys watch Monday afternoon's Broncos-Patriots game because you've got Brett Ripien for the Broncos against Jarrett Stidham for the New England Patriots. With Cam Newton still suffering from the coronavirus, he most likely, I don't know if he's going to play that game, but if he doesn't, it'll be Brett Ripien versus Jarrett Stidham. You've got two of the best defensive tacticians in the NFL battling it out. Bill Belichick on one side, Vic Fangio on the other. It's going to be a great defensive battle. I honestly think this game is not going to have a touchdown in it. I think it's going to go 12-6. So if you like defense, you like low scoring games, go watch that game on Monday afternoon. But if you like high-scoring games, you like offenses, you like teams throwing the ball down the field left and right, I really suggest you avoid that game, because that game would honestly put you to sleep if you watch that Broncos-Patriots game. And the second thing I got to add is I want to respond to your point, Callan, about the Lakers and Trailblazers from, I believe it was 2002, wasn't it? Yeah, it was 2000. Yes, 2002. So you mentioned how the Blazers got hot and then they got cold. Well, my fear is that we could have a reverse here where the Heat, they were cold in the first 2-3 games in the series, and they've gotten hot the last couple of games. So I'm hoping that this trend doesn't continue where it's cold. Yeah, it's cold to hot, because if it is, it's going to be very worrisome for the Lakers if guys like Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, Jimmy Butler, they all play well tomorrow night.
We'll see what happens. I just think that any ball club, though, in basketball cannot really keep that, very, streaky scoring of, threes beyond the arc, inside play, up for, especially Miami's case, when you literally had Jimmy Butler sit out 48 seconds of the ball game last night. That's very worrisome for me. I know, of course, that Davis is playing with that bad heel, but at the same time, though, Butler's been like the main guy. Yeah, he's had some contributions, but he's really been having 40 points. And actually, we should clarify, it was Lakers Blazers in 2000. 2002 was when, of course, Big Shot Bob beat the Kings at Staples Center in the conference semifinals, I believe, that year, maybe even the conference finals as well. Angel agrees, though, if it was a late season game, Colts-Browns would have been flexed to Sunday Night Football. Christy, though, about me perhaps taking over for Scott Hansen, it's 7 hours of commercial-free football. Maybe we'll see what happens here for sure. And also as well, David says, I am intrigued by Philly versus Pittsburgh, hoping that Carson Wentz can bounce back and drop 50 on Pittsburgh. Highly unlikely, but Pitt can stub their toes all out of the tunnel. And Mr. Davis actually says, no, his heel is fine, but his back is hurting, as is my back. But we're obviously we catch your drift there, Chris, in regards to the heel being fine. We could perhaps use at least 10 points off the bench from you, though, maybe for Game 6. As much as Isaiah wants me to go and play, as much as Isaiah wants me to go and play for the Lakers to replace Danny Green, we could probably get 10 out of you from down inside the paint to go down there and box out Bam and Duncan Robinson maybe and Jay Crowder. And also real quick, James says, I've always wondered how many restroom breaks Scott Hansen gets on Sundays. That is a great question, but I have no idea. Go for it, Isaiah. What do you got?
Callan, first of all, I mean, if I do in fact play in the paint against the Heat players, I have a feeling that one push and I would be sent flying to Cuba from Orlando, Florida.
It's probably likely myself included. And with that, folks, again, a very condensed program. We'll now jump into tonight's final thoughts. Wrapping up our Saturday night episode of the Night Shift, folks. Of course, we'll be right back here again on Sunday to recap all the NFL action, Game 6 of the NBA Finals, and also the first day of the ALCS going on tomorrow as well in Major League Baseball. With that, Isaiah, plenty of great football coverage. So many great games. Obviously, I know it was college football across the TV screens today. So we'll see how things in fact go or how things went today. But of course, man, plenty of NFL tomorrow. Plenty of other stuff going on, football, baseball, basketball tomorrow. Isaiah, final thoughts for tonight's program are what?
Wow, man. I am so glad to all the viewers tonight who tuned in to both of our programs tonight, No BS and now the Night Shift. We really appreciate you guys staying up late and watching us talk sports. And also, I want to thank Callan for staying up with me as well to go through two programs through this whole day, only taking a short an hour and 30-minute break in between both programs. So really appreciate you. Also, my final thoughts has got to be about the Miami Hurricanes. This team, the U, everybody, keeps saying in the previous years, oh, the U is back. The U is back after they get off to a 3-0 start or 4-0 start, and then they end up faltering to Clemson. And then this year, the U is back. The U is back after Miami demolished Louisville, and they were looking like a pretty good team. And ESPN was hyping them up like they could be this true contender to take down Clemson in the ACC. And once again, when Miami plays Clemson, what happens? They get beaten down so bad. And ladies and gentlemen, I got to tell you, man, the U is not back once again. And I don't know when if the U will ever be back. But, even though Miami has had early success, we got to stop hyping them up as this team that will come up and, topple Clemson in the ACC. We got to stop bowing down to the early success, because every time we do, Miami ends up choking when it matters the most. I kind of liking them to the Houston Rockets of the NBA, where they have a good regular season, and then they choke in the playoffs. Miami, same thing. They have a good early season run, and then they choke when it matters the most. So until Miami proves it, the U is not back, unfortunately.
Yeah, that is definitely for sure. Some comments trickling in. Shirt all says beat LA, beat LA. Yeah, we want the Braves to beat the Dodgers. I agree with that 100%. Angel agrees, though. Great show, guys. Same time tomorrow. That is correct. Chris is back with some more of the odds for the American League Championship Series. The Rays are favored to win the ALCS at -180. And, of course, the Dodgers are favored for the Dodgers are favored for the NLCS at 225. World Series odds, Dodgers +150, Rays +250, Astros +375, and the Braves at +400 at this juncture. Also, real quick, Angel says, love the shirt, Isaiah, the Dwight Clark Tribute Day shirt being worn by Mr. Leung today. Also, James says, the U is still not ready for prime time at this juncture. Christy agrees that the U has not been good since the days of Jimmy Johnson as their head coach. My goodness gracious. And also, real quick, Christy agrees, awesome show. And also, Mr. King says, a great show again, as always, guys, and glad to be a part of it and look forward to another one tomorrow. My Rams got an early game tomorrow, and you all have a good night. See you all tomorrow. And again, on the night shift, we all definitely agree. Of course, folks, my final thoughts as usual. Again, a major shout out again to everyone who's stayed up late to be able to stay here with us at 11, at close to midnight here, pretty much on the West Coast. And again, people staying up late to, again, get their thoughts in and again, get a recap of their sports day in about an hour or so. With that, Isaiah, pull yourself off mute and we're good to go. What do you got for us, buddy?
Yeah, I just wanted to give a program alert. Ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow, we don't know currently if we're going to have the night shift, because if the Lakers are able to win tomorrow and hoist the number 17 championship, I don't think me and Callan will be here doing the show. I think we're going to be out, him in San Diego, me in the Bay Area. We're going to be out on the street partying and popping champagne, because we've waited 10 years to return to the NBA Finals and capture this damn thing. So it's about time, if we do win it tomorrow, that we're going to have a big celebration, not on air, but on the street.
The only good thing, folks, is the game is set for 4:30 Pacific time. We're not on air till 10 o'clock at night. And, of course, the game's going to be probably going 3 hours. But I think we'll be just fine to be on here for you folks on the night shift, again, to recap the NFL coverage for Week 5 and also, of course, cover the NBA Finals and also Game 1 of the ALCS between the Rays and the Astros from Petco Park here in San Diego, California. But of course, folks, a major thank you to all of our viewers and all of our top fans and all of the great folks of the MI6 community. So again, folks, we'll see you folks back here again on Sunday, back here at 10 o'clock Pacific time, again, to recap the Week 5 NFL action and also recap Game 6 of the NBA Finals and also the first game of the American League Championship Series. Of course, folks, for Isaiah Leung, Cheryl Stephen Wang, and for the rest of the cast and crew here from the MI6 Sports Network, Callan McClurg saying goodnight. And again, we'll see you folks on Sunday night to, again, recap all the big news of the day and scores and games across the wide world of sports coming up at 10 o'clock tomorrow evening back here on the 6th. Till next time, folks, have a good one. So long. Bye-bye.